My brother said awful things at my wedding. I'm writing this here because if I say it out loud, that toast will ring in my ears again and crush my day into shards. My name is Nate. I'm 26. I'm from Ohio. I work in IT, and I've always considered myself someone who keeps everything under control. Until that day. Until the microphone in my brother Aiden's hand. Lily and I met in the college library in winter. She's 5 years younger. Her hands were cold and her voice too warm. I brought her coffee and mixed up the sugar with the salt. She took a sip, and I thought I'd blown my chance forever, but she laughed like it was the best prank in the world. On our third date, she said, "You have the look of someone who's afraid to hurt." I joked that meant I was the safe choice. She answered, "It means you actually hear people." Back then, I didn't understand how true that was, and how cruel it would feel one day to hear silence instead of those words. About Aiden. He's only 2 years older than me, but as kids, that gap felt huge. He was always faster, louder, more noticeable. He got applause at school plays, got smiles at parties. Girls liked him, and teachers forgave him. I was loved politely, forgiven by momentum. When I got an internship at a small IT company, my parents finally looked at me like an adult. But that same year, Aiden flunked out and left college. He used to say the world wasn't built for people like him. For ideas. For charisma. The world, he said, was built for people like me. Quiet, diligent, convenient. That's when a thin thread of resentment stretched between us, like fishing line. Invisible, but cutting. Aiden didn't like Lily at first, or rather, he liked her too much. She was the kind of person who listens and asks the questions you want to answer honestly. He mocked her major, social work, and called her a Saint Bernard for broken hearts, though all those jokes sounded like pleas for attention. A month before the wedding, he texted me, "You're rushing. She wants to pull someone else out of you." I replied, "She wants to come inside, not pull anyone out." He sent a shrug emoji, like surrender. But I knew, he doesn't surrender. We kept the wedding simple. A small suburban church, white garlands, lemonade and cider instead of an expensive bar. Music curated by Lily's friend, a playlist of her childhood songs and my road tunes. The rehearsal went unnervingly smoothly. My father, who's always practical and calculating, carefully told me he was proud. Lily's mom, always anxious, finally hugged me and said, "I'm a harbor." The pastor smiled as if he'd already seen the happy faces on the photos. Only Aiden joked about the toast. "Expect revelations." I smiled. We all smiled. Nobody believed him. The day started with the smell of rain, that July damp when a dress sticks to skin and the sky flickers like it can't decide. Lily was painfully beautiful, not because of the white dress or the curls, but because she looked at me as if she saw my home where others saw a modest apartment facing a parking lot. I held her fingers and thought if happiness had a voice, it sounded like her yes. Guests clapped, and in that clap there was true faith. The first hour was almost fairy tale. We danced to Fleetwood Mac. My aunt cried nonstop. Lily's little nephew smeared frosting over his chin. The photographer caught sun glares as if they were our personal stars. Aiden circulated tables, laughed the loudest, poured drinks. I noticed his laugh sharpen like glass, his eyes glinting with something more than alcohol. Several times he tried to catch Lily's gaze, but she avoided him like she knew his look was a question with no answer. When the glasses were raised, the MC announced, "The brother of the groom will say a few words." I turned to Aiden, and for the first time that day, I felt afraid. He gripped the microphone like the handle of a tool he planned to use. He made a few jokes, people laughed. He paused, then said, "There are things people don't like to talk about at weddings, but I've always been for the truth." 1 second. 2. 3. Lily squeezed my hand. I nodded at her like I could protect us with a chin nod. Aiden continued. "When my brother said he was getting married, I asked, 'Why so fast?' And he said, 'Because he found the woman of his dreams.' Back then, I didn't know that his dreams were what used to be called love and forgiveness. I'm sorry to say this, but someone needs to. Lily wasn't with him while they, And if someone thinks that's not important, okay. But Nate, do you at least know that Lily's father wouldn't have come today if he believed in this union?" A whisper rose like wind before a storm. Lily's father really didn't come, partly because of an old divorce, partly because of an irreconcilable temperament. In that moment, his absence became evidence. Aiden took another sip. And money. Let's be honest, weddings are expensive. Who paid? Okay, don't answer. But I know Nate took a loan. I know Lily's mom pawned the car. And I know Lily worked nights. Is this love? Or a deal where everyone's buying their right not to be alone? Someone said, "Aiden, stop." Someone else, "Let him finish." What hit me wasn't even the words. The pauses were worse. In those pauses lived everything I'd been afraid of. That Lily once dated someone and didn't tell me. That I did take a loan because I wanted to make this day what she deserved. That Lily's mom sold the old Ford, though I'd offered to help. These were truths, but torn from context and laid out to become knives. Lily stood. She took the microphone from the host like a doctor taking a prescription. Her voice was steady. "Yes, I had a life before Nate. We all did. And yes, we paid for our wedding as we could, and that's our choice. Ours." Aiden smiled as if he'd been waiting for that. "Or will you tell about how we texted? Or should I read?" Inside me, something slammed like a door in a draft. Lily paled. My ears started ringing. He pulled out his phone. Began reading snatched phrases from years-old messages. Back when Lily was a freshman crawling out of a toxic relationship. Back when he, my brother, wrote her as family friend, that she supposedly deserved better. He read only his lines and selected from hers the bits with the word understand. He manipulated words like a skilled person plays with light and shadow. You're so sensitive. If you were with me, you understand me better than he does. Those were his messages. Somewhere among her replies there were polite, guarded, sometimes bewildered phrases. Don't write that. I'm uncomfortable. We're family. He read his lines and chose from hers what fit his picture. At that moment my mom stood up loud. Aiden, put the phone down. But he couldn't be stopped. He wanted to prove he was right. That I, quiet, convenient, don't see what he sees. And the crowd, as crowds do, wanted spectacle. People both sympathized and leaned closer. I stood up. Not theatrically, not heroically. I simply stood and approached him. Asked him to give me the phone. He stepped back and said, You want to marry someone who... I didn't let him finish. I said calmly, I want to marry someone who chose me over you. For the first time it became clear. It was never about truth. It was about that Lily did not choose him, and that I had chosen myself without his permission. But the show was already happening. Then everything moved in slow motion. Lily's stepfather tries to grab the mic. Someone knocks over a table of cupcakes. My father, red-faced, lunges to the stage. The pastor pales. Lily whispers to me, Let's go. I nod, take her hand. In that moment, Aiden throws, Tell him about the test. I turn. What test? He smiles triumphantly. Pregnancy. Did you take a test? And someone gasps. Someone counts weeks. Someone holds their breath. Lily looks at me wide-eyed, defenseless. I took a test a month ago. It was negative. I'm not pregnant. I didn't say because I didn't want to make drama. I'm not pregnant. This plain, honest sentence cuts like clean air, but doesn't stop the wave. Aiden waves his phone, but I have different info. He displays a message on the screen. Congrats, Lil. 2 lines. It's fate. It was a screenshot from a friend's chat, not her 2 lines. People no longer distinguish whose life it is. The crowd wants simple answers. The crowd is always hungry. We left. Not theatrically, not beautifully. We left and locked ourselves in a tiny bride's room. I stood and heard the noise on the other side of the wall. My mom shouting at Lily's father. Someone calling a taxi. Someone arguing about the deposit. Someone filming. In the room, just the 2 of us and the beat of my heart. Lily sat on the edge of the sofa and said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the messages. It was nasty back then. I was afraid it would look like there was something between us. There was nothing between us. I sat beside her and said, I know. And I understood that was the truth you can't cut down with someone else's applause. We returned to the hall in 20 minutes, because adults do that, go back and finish what they started. The pastor asked if we should continue the ceremony. We were already married on paper. The question was whether tonight would be the evening of our love or the evening of someone's grievance. I took the mic and said, Friends, thank you for coming. Today something happened that will definitely become a family legend. But legends are chosen. We will choose ours. Lily and I will go home. If you want to stay, stay. There's food and music. But the toasts are over. I put the microphone down. Lily took my arm. We walked out into the rain that had finally started for real. We drove home in silence. At a red light she said, You could have snapped at me. I replied, I'll snap when I start believing his version. She nodded. In the kitchen, we sat in wedding clothes, eating cold pizza from the box I ordered on the way. I didn't feel like a groom or a husband. I felt like someone who'd ferried his life to the other shore and saw the bridge burning behind him. The next day calls began. Mom said, Aiden just overdid it. Dad said I'd made the family a laughingstock. My aunt sent a long voice message repeating, You understand, 20 times. Lily's relatives split. Some said, Stay strong. Others, How awkward, you should have talked it out. Aiden texted, Hope now you won't live in illusions. I didn't answer. He sent another. One day you'll say thank you. I put my phone in the freezer, just to feel silence for a minute. On the 3rd day I went to a lawyer. It sounds absurd, a lawyer after a wedding. But I wanted to know what can be done when someone reads private messages publicly and pronounces half-truths like a final verdict. The lawyer, a woman whose eyes had reflected other people's catastrophes for years, said, Defamation is complicated, especially when it's evaluative statements and at a public event. I asked, What if he harassed my wife? I have messages. She nodded. That's different. Keep everything. And think about boundaries. Boundaries were the hardest. My mom begged for a 3-way meeting. Me, her, Aiden. I said no. My dad invited me for a beer like men. I said no. Even Grandma, my quiet fortress, said, Blood is thicker than water. For the first time I told her, Sometimes blood is poison. I turned my phone off for a week and found out how a house sounds without notifications. Like a real house. Lily and I escaped for 2 days to Lake Erie. We drank tea from a thermos, sat in jackets on the beach, and were silent without resentment. She asked, Are you sure you don't hate me? I said, Hate is wanting to punish. I want to protect. She buried her face in her jacket collar. In the evening, we did what we'd been putting off. We wrote a joint note. Not for social media, for ourselves. Listing facts. Fact. Lily had relationships before me. Fact. Aiden messaged her, sometimes intrusively. Fact. She refused him. Fact. At the wedding he chose to be an accuser, not a brother. Fact. We are married. Sometimes you need lists, like tire chains on ice. We spent the fall fixing an apartment and repairing relationships, or closing them. I changed passwords, blocked Aiden, asked parents not to tell him anything about us. They were offended. They said I was blackmailing them with love. But love is not blackmail. Love is choice. I chose. Sometimes in the morning traffic, I replayed that toast in my head, trying to find a second to stop it. I couldn't. Evil has its geometry. It's built in advance, unnoticed, and at the right moment assembled from prepared parts. In winter, I received a postcard with no return address. Inside, a photo of Lily and me in the first hour of the wedding, the one where we laugh like kids who've been given grown-up lemonade. On the back, someone's handwriting. Some people's happiness is like a cupcake. Whip it up, and it's ready. But you like real baking, right? I crumpled the card and tossed it, but I kept the photo. It was a moment before. In spring, my mother died. The doctor said, heart, suddenly. Though does a heart die suddenly, if it carried other people all its life? My father called. His voice was like an empty shell, echo without meaning. He said the funeral would be Saturday. I said, we'll come. He murmured, I'm sorry. I didn't reply, not because I held a grudge, but because I had no words. At the cemetery, it was windy. People held hats like they hold their thoughts in strong gusts. We stood a little apart, because that's how it turned out, always a little apart. And there I saw Aiden. He looked thinner, or I guessed so. His gaze wasn't triumphant or angry, exhausted. He approached me alone, without intermediaries. He said, you shouldn't have ignored me. I looked at the fresh soil and asked, why did you do it? He shrugged, because you were always right, and I was honest. I smiled. You were hungry. He didn't agree. I was alone. Lily stood beside me, like quiet protection. He stepped closer and said, I thought then I was saving you from a mistake. Now, I don't know. Maybe I wanted you to be left earlier than life would. I felt how all the words in the world are powerless when a person confuses saving with destroying. I exhaled. You need to apologize to my wife. He nodded. I'll apologize. He turned to her. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Lily nodded politely. That polite nod was the last mercy we had. Then he said what he came for. Let's start over. It sounded like an offer to rewind the day he picked up the mic. For a second, I imagined us sitting on Dad's porch, drinking lemonade, laughing about how everything went. But I said, no. He didn't get angry. He simply lost another myth. I added, blood is not an indulgence. He nodded, like someone who finally heard what everyone else knew except him. We left first. Relatives whispered, at least at the funeral. But everyone has their own at least. Lily said, I'm sorry about your mom. I said, I'm sorry she didn't see how we managed. We managed not because of anyone, but despite. Now Lily and I have a new tradition. We record toasts for each other on our anniversary. Truly. No mic, no guests. Last year I said, to choosing to be on my side when the whole hall chose a show. She said, to your I know that proved stronger than strangers' screenshots. We laughed and cried, because happy people have these things too. Sometimes I imagine what I'll tell my kids if they ask about my brother. I'll say some people think truth is a knife, but truth is a tool like a knife. You can cut bread with it, or people. And I'll say family isn't those who share DNA, but those who share silence when words turn to ash. We have that photo in our hallway, the one of us laughing before it all fell. I hung next to it another photo, taken by the photographer the same moment but from a different angle. It shows my brother in the distance, mic-less but already taking aim. Sometimes I stop and look at both. Two truths in one frame, and I know which one I chose. I haven't forgiven Aiden. I don't carry a stone in my chest. I simply built a house where he can't reach. I didn't cross his name out of the family Bible. I didn't tell acquaintances how bad he is. I just live without him. Quietly, stubbornly, day by day. Sometimes it sounds like revenge. In reality, it's health. That night after the funeral, I reread the 3-year-old exchange that he used to hold his trial at our wedding. I realized he didn't want Lily. He wanted me gone. He wanted me back in my place, second, invisible, in the shadow of someone else. I closed my laptop and went to the kitchen. Lily was making pancakes. We ate them with our hands, burning ourselves, laughing as syrup dripped on the floor. Laughter isn't proof of rightness. Laughter is proof of life. When people ask how to survive this, I don't give advice. I say, choose a person and hold on to them. Not the idea of marriage, not an image, not a family banner. A person. Their hand, their scent, their stumbling words. That day at the wedding, the world offered us a cheap script. Scandal, expose, tears, forgiveness, hugs for the camera. We chose the expensive one. To leave. To gather ourselves from shards. Not to let others clap at our ending. And if someday I'm asked to give a toast at someone's wedding, I won't talk about eternal love. I'll say that sometimes the strongest love is to stand up from the table and leave together, when everyone decides the show must go on. My brother said awful things at my wedding. He lives with that choice, as I live with mine. But my choice is a home, a kitchen chair where we eat pancakes at night, and the photo on the wall where we laugh as if time can heal. Maybe it can, if you give it silence and the right hand. I hold that hand, and it holds me. And no microphone in the world is louder than that.